Welcome, cycling fans. I hope you're enjoying all the amazing guests that I've been bringing you on the podcast to date. And before we get started, I want to share with you an amazing way that you can coach with me this winter. So if you've been liking all my coaching segments, you're going to love this program. So it's my 16-week online winter road cycling training program. Say that 10 times fast. So I've been doing this program for over 15 years. It's been usually local, but now it's online, which is even more amazing because I can impact more cyclists this way than in studio. The way it works is you're going to learn valuable cycling skills, such as, have you ever asked yourself, first of all, how can I become a create a more smooth pedal stroke? Like, what are the 4 quadrants all these people have been talking about? And how can I get stronger on the hills? So here's the thing. It really comes down to the fundamentals and the basics skills of cycling, which when you get on your bike, you know nothing about. Now this is that, and that's what I'm going to drill into you over 16 weeks. So when you finish, you are going to know how to create a smooth pedal stroke and be more efficient. You're going to be climbing hills with much better technique. You're going to be building your sprint base, and your endurance base is going to be much stronger. Now, I have a special code for you. It's podcast in all uppercase to get $50 off either the VIP or the basic program. Now, go to this website to check out what the differences are. Basically, the VIP is a much greater coaching program. So if you want more personalized coaching, goal setting, and we have a reported 5 to 20% increase in fitness. Can you imagine starting your spring with that kind of increase based on last year? So it's 16wkroadcycling.ca. So that's 16wkroadcycling.ca, and use the code podcast to get $50 off. And if you have questions, just email me. I'd love to answer them, and I hope and look forward to coaching you to become better on the bike. I hope you enjoy the next episode. Have an amazing day. All right, everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie. And I am so excited to bring this friend of mine on the podcast. Her name is Julie Hutsebaut, and I'm going to give you, I don't have a written bio, but I'm going to tell you how much she means to me because we connected almost 20 years ago. So in 2000, I know it's almost like, look at us. Oh my God. I'm going to post a picture of the two of us in 2005. So that's when I started my women's masters race team, and my sister was on it, and she found Julie at a women's chat. I don't know. It was like,
a woman coaching workshop.
Oh, yeah, a women's coaching workshop. So they connected. Then she came and became my first coach for cycling. And so that, like I said, that was 2005. So back then she taught me everything that I have still used and transfer into my clients and my athletes today. And she's gone through a lot. Not only did I find out just the other day that she had just retired, and we were her first coaching clients back then. And so she's worked with Olympic agencies. She's going to tell you more about that. And how long ago did you have your accident?
It's gonna be 8 years in November, so still counting. So that's always a sign, but it's fading.
Yeah, oh, that's good, because 8 years ago she had this debilitating accident where on the job she fell and she hit her head. And we're going to get into a little bit of that, of the concussion. And like I said, it's been 8 years. She's been working through the accident, the symptoms from the accident. And but before we get into all that, I'm going to bring Julie out. I'm so excited to have you here. And I'm so glad that we've always stayed friends and being connected, because, you know, you can't have too many female cycling friends and coaches having your back these days.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sylvie, for having me, and huge congratulations to you for everything you've built in over 20 years, because I'm sure all of this started before we met, and what you've been just still so committed to continuing doing and just seeing from afar. It's truly amazing. So congratulations to you.
Actually, it started with you in 2005, maybe 2000. Like, I started the spinning studio before that, but my true cycling experience started with you when I just like, hey, I want to have a masters women's team, and I grabbed a couple girls that I knew. Hey, you want to race? And we're all just like, what's that? I'm like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. And we hired somebody to take us through the ropes, and look, yeah, still doing it to this day. And I have a lot, you know, to thank Julie for. So I'm just so excited that she said yes to be on this podcast, because, like, oh my God, it's like, if I could spend more time with you, I would. But let's get into, I always love to start the podcast just getting into the background as to how you got into cycling, because her dad, Pierre Hutsebaut, is I don't say a world, like an internationally famous coach. He coached me for a little bit. I have stories about him, but he coached Julie. So Julie, take us back to when you got into cycling. I know it was fun.
Well, we're recording in the times of the Olympics, Tokyo 2020, going full speed, and we are filled with stories about athletes and their journey. And, you know, I don't have that much credit on how I started with cycling, because I feel like some Italian families might have always done homemade pasta and they just start a restaurant. So for me, cycling is my babysitting, it's my family, it's my legacy. And I've got to realize it's probably in the DNA. How can an activity be in a DNA? I have no idea. But as we continue, as I'm aging and there's other generations coming after, that cycling is still there. So my dad is French and moved to Canada, Montreal. So I was raised over there with him. And we're basically living, him and I, together the weekdays. And at the time that it was post-Olympics in 1976, where we had a velodrome in Montreal, right? And my father was already involved in cycling. He was a cyclist back in France. So cycling was my babysitting. The velodrome was my daycare after school. He was coaching, so the athletes that he was coaching were coming at home for the meetings because I was there. So I learned to play Uno with the guys, and you know, so it's really some of your listeners, viewers might know the Mardi Lachine weekly race in Montreal. So every Tuesday night, I would follow my dad over there. So, you know, one thing's led to another, and I have to say. Again, it's a very timely moment for us to meet, and I'm, you know, I'll honor another member of my family through you here. Is my uncle Michel Hutsebaut has passed just this week suddenly, and he has done a lot for Mountain Bike International and in France. So, and that brings back the whole legacy. So I am the 5th generation in cycling. So it goes to First World War in Europe, and that those stories are coming out at the moment a little bit because of the sudden passing. So I guess that's how I started, right? By having the family in there, hearing stories about the Tour de France, watching the Tour de France every summer, going to the races, to the cycling scene in Quebec when I was a kid. And I did not race as a kid. That's, I think that was a conscious choice for my father. So I did another sport. So I picked it up on my own later on, and I decided to race as well.
So when
that's
did you
the full
start racing?
scope.
When did you start racing? Because you did, yeah. So because I know you were in Europe racing, because you had, when we met you, you had kind of finished and
yeah, but I was already in my late 20s, I reckon. So I was a swimmer for 10 years as a kid and age group and teenage, then stopped. And some point in university, I decided to go back to racing, to competing, but didn't know I was old. You know, you're old at 20 years old to start a new sport.
Back then, eh? Yeah, you were old.
So, and I knew I wanted to do something more than yeah, exactly. So, and then if I was going to commit, it was to do something more than what I did in swimming and go a bit of a higher level. So then you look at it really bluntly, say, what can I do? And I look at some endurance sport, and then I had a little bit of an advantage with cycling, being that I knew what an échappée, a breakaway, all these terminology, what it means. I knew a little bit of the atmosphere and the world and the culture of cycling. So I've decided to give it a go, and my butterflies shoulders to bring them into my quads.
It's like take the V and turn it upside down.
Yeah, because it was massive.
You're like fabulous.
So yeah, that's how I started. So I was at uni, and I was 20 years old when I made a decision. I think my first race, I was something like 21 years old, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's never too late, guys. Never too late. And then I met a whole bunch of.
No, but you know, it's funny because I think we always talk about how, you know, you shouldn't start kids too young, because, you know, by the time, like, they don't get to experience their life as a kid, and then they're just burnt out by the time they're like 17, and, you know, ACL and all. But I love that you started late, because your dad must have been ecstatic.
I would let him answer that question. You can keep that one. But you know, I remember when I was in my teenage year, my father was building bikes, and he was also running a weekly race, like a training races like we have here in Ottawa. And so I would go there as well. After my swimming practice, I would bus and go there. And people, this is where they start ask me if I was gonna race. So, and my father would really answer before me. She's a swimmer. So that's he respected that, right? But he respected that, and that was my identity, and that was my world and my independence. So that's great. Then there's something about racing and achieving through sport. And yes, it helps in somewhat to have a goal and to have benchmarks. So the whole events scene helps in that sense. And I was not able to just exercise for my own well-being. I just wasn't there yet. So this is how cycling came across. And you know, education has a long way in there, because although I've never raced, I always had a road bike. And I knew how to ride a bike with clip-ons, and I knew how to shift gears. It was the shifters on the frames, but I still knew that. So my father just ensured that I could have fun and I could be safe riding a road bike. And I grew up in France a lot too. So cycling was a mode of transportation and leisure. It was not about racing. So that's, I think that helps. And for the parents out there listening, it's a motto that I try to have. I have children, so it's just to educate them and tool them, and then they get to decide what they want to do. So
at that spot too, you know, like exposing them to, you know, enough sports out there to see which one they gravitate to. And then, you know, but cycling's in there. It's not one of the main ones, unfortunately, but they're still on their bikes, and that's all that matters, because, you know, as long as they're developing in a sport, staying active, that's truly what's important to me. You know, I don't want them to be like so tired of some sport, unless, you know, because they think that they need to be there because I want them there. But more so that, you know, they want to be there. But so, all right. So you found yourself cycling at the age of 21. So how did you, okay, so were you like in the Quebec circuit? Were you doing that kind of
Yes,
racing
and I
over
was
there?
still living in Montreal. However,
Okay.
my father had moved to Ottawa and live on the Quebec side here. So quickly, I already felt the time ticking. So I need to get at this fast. So left the apartment, moved back to dad's, like a lot of people, for 2 years to finish my degree at Ottawa U, and then start to travel in the winter to do the base mileage. And also I did my coaching certification there, because as an adult, you know, you are an adult athlete, you're no more a student athlete, and you need to take ownership, right? It's at a time where all my friends would go find a job and start their life, and here I was just starting to travel with my bike. So are you always with your coach? No, you know, cycling is very specific as a sport, right, for the coach athlete relationship as well. So that was my second major piece as I made the decision, was also education. I had some experience with swimming. In swimming, you had the mercy of your coach when you're young, especially, and in the 90s. So there's something I didn't want to recreate there. So I want to understand what I was going to do. I want to understand coaching. So I started the coaching certification, the whole pathway, as I started to race. And the Quebec circuit, I was a resident of Quebec. And there's a race every Sunday. I bought a car.
Yeah, you have to have a car.
You gotta have a car to go ride your bike.
Gotta be able to travel, because they're not all close. So how did you get over to Europe? Because like when I met you, you were fully sponsored by Terry Bikes or Terry Clothing. It was a female company. I remember that. But how did you land over in Europe? Because you need to be a certain, well, I guess you don't need to be at a certain level to go over in Europe. You can travel up the ranks in Europe.
Well, again, my advantage was that I'm from France as well. I have my nationality, and my family owns a cycling club that for 90 years now. So
wow.
Yes. And they live very close from the airport in Paris. So there's kind of a hub there. There's tons of cyclists. And back in the day, I am that old. There was not necessarily a women's race every weekend here, right? Or there was maybe 5 girls at the start line. So some of that is still the reality. So also I was able to access fully women's race almost every weekend, because there's a lot of women that were racing in France. And from there, and a lot of teams and clubs. So from there, I was able to introduce myself and find clubs and do a full season, or at least 4 months of racing on my own. And you experience the European lifestyle where you cross a border, a country in 3 hours drive. And, you know, so in Quebec, you would drive 6 hours, or in Ontario, 6 hours to go a Sunday race. So over there, you drive the 6 hours and you access this field of 80 girls on the start line. Right. So my family was instrumental. They hosted me a lot, especially those first 2 years where I had to get better. I had to train. I had to put the mileage, put the watts into my quads. There's no secrets. For sure. There's no secrets.
Yeah, that's
Head
right.
down, keep the wheel.
Again, do it
So,
again.
yes, yes. And kudos to the community in Ottawa, the cycling community in Ottawa, because I would still touch base here to finish my university. And this was my home base. And we have so they really taught me a lot. Um, we have such strong cyclists in the region. So they were very nice with me. And I guess I was just oblivious. Yes, please help me. And I would receive all the help.
Really.
Yeah.
Give me some pointers.
So the community has been very generous with me the first couple years. And I've had the chance to thank them first. And yeah, and then after that, I was able to get some contracts in Europe to pro teams, and got an entry to the World Cup circuit and the international races, because there's UCI races. The circuit was happening over there. That was before really the boom of the American races and the circuit here. So I had more contacts over there, and I could mingle a couple languages, so that always helps.
Definitely.
Integration. And yeah, so I was not extremely stable. I did not spend 3-4 years with the same team, but I knew which races I wanted to go.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you spend more time racing by yourself, or were you able to build up, I guess, your performance within a team? Like, were you with a team long enough, or? Yes,
every year I was with a team. And to one of your comments in the introduction, what does it take, to race in Europe? And we hear a lot about the culture, and to adapt to the host culture, right? And it's the whole point of traveling and immigration and that. So, so my first full season, I was with a club, just a regional club that had a women's team in France, and they provide us lodging. We were 6 foreigners, 3 boys and 3 girls, 2 Canadian girls, a girl from Montreal as well. And they provided the equipment and transport and race entry.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Right. So yeah. So that's basically how it was done. Then another year I was in Spain with a bit of the same setup. And then I was able to access international UCI races, stage races. So then that was another block. And then I went to Italy, then did the same thing over there and found host housing. And then I was able to get an entry for the Giro d'Italia. Cool. And then that led me to open the door to a Swiss team. And this is why I did my last full year of racing with a Swiss team. And again, host housing. And in my days, what you want mostly is having access to the competition, to the racing. And then you have your training program, and then you race and you do your job with the teammates, and then everyone goes back to their home, right? There's often 2 or 3 foreigners and guest riders that have their host housings, and everyone else have their lives. A lot of women work as well. So for me, I was working remotely, doing contracts to get by. So that's a lot. Then when we met, it's actually, I had decided to settle back in Ottawa. I had decided that I was looking forward to just settle. And then a couple of weeks later, I met the guy who's today my husband after 15 years.
Happens.
Yeah.
That happened.
Yeah. So then the focus shifted, and it's like, all right, I'm not gonna go away for 6 months anymore.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
So you said, now I remember asking you way back when about your salary, about how much you made as a pro racer, and you looked at me, you're like, I think you said like $1,200 a month or something. So yeah.
And that would have been
there's also Yeah, there's also that big movement now for equality for women cyclists.
Do some karting and
Yeah.
yes. Well, again, back in my days, I mean, it was the early 2000 years. And then also in the States, there was the booming of this new circuit with the criteriums and really a big movement for equality, for equality between men and women, especially in the prize money. So it was before social media. So there was also a huge disconnect between the continents and getting information and that. So how did no, I never had a salary, just to answer it bluntly, but I had sponsors and I had personal relationships with companies, and we would talk about values. We would have shared values, and this supported my journey and my dream. And then I would, I would give back. And when I was coming home, then, so that's how I made it happen, between that and the support from the team, plus Quebec has a very strong program for identified and benefit from that tax credit program. So yeah, and then you figure out ways, right? There's a bit of entrepreneurship, I guess, that was there back then, just I think a bit like you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it must have been a bit harder back then, try to make it all happen, like try to have like contracts on the side, because I've chatted and I've interviewed a couple of the girls who are on the Canadian, well, let's take the Canadian Olympic team for road, Andriane Bonhomme. Yeah, I talked to her, and I talked to a couple of girls who were on the track team, and I was always like, do you do anything extra to make money? I was just like, no, this is my job. And but then I came across one, Lex Albrecht. I'm sure you've met Lex. I'm like, so what'd you do? She's like, she's a little hustler. I love her. Like, I was just like, yeah. She's like, I made things work. I had little contracts. So it's funny to see, like, who's doing a little bit extra. I mean, with social media, you can do so many different things online to be, just to make a little extra money, to just make ends meet, right?
Yeah.
Based on,
I would work in the winter months, right? Come home, get a contract, a lot of coordination and project planning, and then work for the sponsors as well. And then planning the next year and planning the budget that you need. And it's one thing to make a living when you're yourself and your bike and you're okay to eat white pasta every day and living anywhere. Then, then having other kind of links.
Well, one thing I noticed about you is that you work really hard for your sponsors. Like, I always see you with, like, because you so Terry, I always saw you with your Terry stuff, and then you worked with a lady in Montreal, and you always worked like promoting her product. I can't remember the name. You always had her clothes on all the time. Yeah, the back pocket.
Quête Saint Laurent, so the clothes from KSL clothes. So
yeah,
she's
KSL,
a former,
yes.
Former teammate.
Oh my God. So,
and she had a dream, and when she stopped racing, she started a company, and today this is from KSL.
Oh, stand up. Are you wearing one of
there?
You
things? Go. Well,
okay,
I don't want to
that's
change,
pretty nice.
Always a little pocket at the back, and my pants as well. But I won't change my setup.
No, that's really pretty. And I purchased a couple of things from her too. Especially I have the under panties, the chamois panties. I don't know what they are, but I could put them underneath any kind of capri, which is nice for short rides.
They're awesome, and the demand is there. She's been pressured to produce more. She named every clothes with a first name. So for all the viewers there, this is called the in French, like culotte Eve. So the Eve panty, but it's really just a chamois that you can put underneath any kind of shorts and leggings and go on your bike ride and be in full comfort.
Yes. You know, like I said, these are great for anything
Yep.
under 40 kilometers. Over 40, you might want something more substantial that won't move, but they're great.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
just like,
Yep.
I like these capris. I want this booty. I'll put these underneath. So I still
But you're
have
right.
those.
It's important to give back. And, you know, I've always associated myself with entrepreneurs. So even the sponsors. So they had a dream as well. So if I can give back, I'm not shy to have brands on me. And if it's a way that I can give back to them, I'm all. As long as we share values, I will always endorse, right? And so like Ketsi, KSL, and my other sponsors that were not in cycling, we have the same values, and that's how we connect, and then we can partner.
I totally agree, and it totally makes sense, and it definitely, it's a win-win for everybody. Now, so moving forward, we connect. 2005, you retire, you find your husband, things set up in a now. I want to talk to you because you worked really closely with the Paralympic department, I want to say, and you went to a couple Paralympics, and you worked really closely with not the security, it was to make sure that the accessibility of buildings, like you go on site, make sure that all disabled para athletes are able to access all buildings. And I thought that was amazing. Like, you were so ingrained in that. That was like,
thank you. Yeah, life brought me there, and that's been a blessing. So when we met, I was really putting in action the career transition, and was going into becoming a coach full time. And so I was happy that, you know, we met and partnered, and then I had a few other athletes, and also I took over the coaching and management of the Terry cycling team, where I met others, and Megan Garnier came out of there, just true champion in the States. So really, by managing the teams, this is really, I loved it. And I was again contractual with managing some local teams here at the Canadian stage races. I went to Canada Games for the Quebec team as a coach. And then I got pregnant, which was the plan. So that was all good. I already had a stepson, so I got pregnant. So grabbed the baby with me and doing all the fun stuff that you do with a baby on your lap, and, you know, before you're about to drive for 4 hours behind a caravan. Yes. And then the first thing you say, good job, girls, well, I'll grab my baby, right? So
you're back at the house.
Yeah. And then we had an idea of having another child. So when the third one came along, and even through the pregnancy, I discovered the whole more stability and the perks of having a maternity leave and having, you know, that kind of thing. So did a contract, was again very lucky to get in, got a contract, got some sort of maternity leave. And then with the third kid, that coaching and being on the road just started to be a little bit difficult. And hats off, all my admiration for the coaches out there, men and women, our parents with the young kids. It's very a choice. It's very a choice. So I chose to stay home a bit more. And one thing I knew was coordinating sports team. And we were at the time that the parasport movement, the Paralympic movement, was reblooming. We were after the 2008 Games in Beijing, where the Paralympics happened right after the Olympics and really received the same kind of level of recognition. and support and infrastructures and all that. So Canada cycling in general has always been a protagonist into promoting paracycling, and Quebec being one. So when I joined the Quebec provincial projects and training camps, there was always paracyclists with us, always.
I remember your dad was a big
Louis Barbeau and Eric Van den Eyne, and they all integrated them, right? So my first training camp with the Quebec team, we had Julie Cournoyer, a visually impaired athlete. We had Jean Quivillon, we had Gary Lungi. We had all these really legends of Canadian paracycling that were with us. So when I was at a point where I was looking for stability, but still so passionate about sport, Cycling Canada had an opening for a paracycling really standalone program, and they had postings. So I applied, and they trusted me. So I started to work with the paracycling program and team. Got to go to paracycling world championships, track and road. So that just lit me up, and that was, I already was acquainted with it, but that was, I want to do it. And I recognize that because also as a teenage, I was working at the Women's Tour de France in the summer, so they're all racing and
Oh yeah.
And stage races and organizing and working with teams. I really loved it when I was 18, 20 years old in my summers before I raced. So then I got it again by going to the Worlds. Jacques Landry trusted me and really gave me an opportunity that if there was not a team trusting me with this, I would have not been where I am now in terms of career transition. That's another topic. And then through that, the Paralympic Committee was after. Then we got to Vancouver 2010, which was huge for Canada, and the Paralympic Committee really had this mandate of, again, being equal to the Olympic Committee and to bring all the Paralympic sports. So again, a lot of opportunities for application, for postings, for development. The Paralympic movement was just blooming. So for me, j'ai pris ma chance. So I tested out, and it worked out. And then, I was fortunate to go to some major games and to be really into the games coordination, hands-on, right in there. And big part of my mandate was that transition between the Olympic able body to the Paralympics. So for example, the site inspections, so to making sure that they would do all the adaptations we need to have afterwards. The clothing, to make sure we would have all the adaptation on the clothing, right, in terms of zippers and just accessibility friendly.
Yeah, because I remember I volunteered for you.
You did, the pick and
packages. I think,
yes.
And that was like, I volunteered to help package like all the athletes' kits.
Exactly.
In their rolling luggage. Just like, wow.
There you go.
And I think
that would have been for London, I guess. Yes. Sorry.
But I think not too long after, that was when you had your accident.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Because I was just like, wow, like I was just there.
Well, I can't remember which games exactly you came, but it might have been Sochi, actually, if it was a big rolling suitcase.
So, I believe it. There was like the rolling suitcase, and you had, and you
like rows and the shopping cart, and it's always a bit impressive, right? And we're looking for volunteers. They're always looking for volunteers, and it's fun.
It is. I mean, like, Jesus. Yeah. Hey, that's worth being the athlete right there, is getting that swag bag. That's not a swag bag. That's like a duffel bag full of fabulous. Because like, anyways. And then
just a little accident happened, and it was just before Sochi. I was all set to go Sochi, so that did not happen, and that was a deception, because a disappointment. I had, but I had to deal with it, and it became, a bit of a longer recovery journey, where I got introduced to readaptation. And for myself, and again, I mean, I'm forever grateful that I was able to be around athletes with all kind of disabilities, born with it, they were congenitals, because when it was my turn to embrace this phase of readaptation, and I had a little bit of orientation already, because I knew people. I've heard conversations about that. I've heard their stories about it. So a little bit like cycling back in the day, right? I already knew a little bit. It was not as intimidating. So here it was not scary. It was not a huge mountain. It was, oh, wow, that's it, So, oh, wow, now what? Well, let's go at it,
Yeah, because
it's a training like any kind of training.
Yeah, because I think maybe this is worth like having a second interview with you just to talk all about that, because I'm like, honestly, like, just watching you through the years, because I would come over every once in a while to say hi, and you just tell me about your journey. And here the thing is, guys, and I think that, because we're 45 minutes in already, and I know Julie asked to not go too long, just because of her focus on the conversation. And so this is maybe where I'd love to, if you're okay with this, and I'm just going to give, and we'll just talk a teensy bit before we finish, because I want you guys to come back and I want you to listen to this. We all know somebody who's suffered from a concussion, and concussions can happen from multiple blows or a serious blow to some part of the head. And it depends on that part of the head. I mean, Julie, you can correct me, but this is kind of what I understand, that it will affect you differently. And I watched Julie go from like I don't want to cry, a massively like moving forward woman, mom, to like basically starting over. And 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 I'm so glad she's where she is today. And I'm so glad.
Sylvie, is the other way around.
I know. Because she's such a strong woman, and to see her the other week when she came to the event, I was just like, oh my God, we just started together like so long ago. And anyways, I love you. So fun. So anyways,
Sylvie, thank you.
My mascara is gonna run all of my
fingers. Take a break.
I know, I need to break now. But anyways, just to say that I am super glad that you've been here, and this is where I want you to talk more about your experience.
Yeah,
your experience. Let me compose myself.
And I'm happy to do it. And thank you for your awareness. I'm okay cognitively, so that you could just give me goosebumps, and that's where it cracked me up. Yeah, because you never know how long it's going to be, and when it's just long and long and long, you're just like you're in disbelief, right? And what else? I lost track of my thought from all these wonderful emotions.
Yeah, because I know it's been a journey for you, because a long journey, and you've come a long way, and not so many people would probably push that hard. I mean, like, Yeah.
Yeah. I've hid away. Got it.
I'm like, what? What are you saying?
Okay. So what's the point here? The point here is a huge thank you. Thank you for staying there. The thing with post-concussive syndrome, I think it's that duality on one side, and the duality in wanting to reach out and not being able to, always having that feeling that you're not doing enough, because every communication is creating a strain and it's tiring you up. I had 3 kids. The kids were young, couldn't do homework, couldn't cook. So that was my main focus. And I tackled it as an athlete, especially after a couple months when I saw that the ticket was long. I was in for the long haul. And with my fellow, called it concussed friends, and we all, that from the rehab center, I was telling them in our weekly sessions that, how are you guys doing it? Because you were not athletes before. And my athletic drive got me to every day. You know, I was so focused on doing what I need to do for the rehab, including the pacing, including the resting, including resting my brain so that I could be the best version of myself for the 2 hours that I had with the children at night. So that was my focus. It was so hard to leave, to be away. I'm quite a social person still. I like people, I like cycling, and going to a race and my earplugs, my goggles, and then I would take 2 days to recover. So that was really the hard part. Leave aside of what am I going to do for with my life. Yeah. And there was, but again, education. I go back to this piece. So as soon as I was a little bit okay, 2 pieces is also, there were some courses. We were talking more and more about concussion. Mindfulness had just been, how do you say it, recognized as one of the top 3 tools, resources that really do help recovery from post-concussive syndrome. So from that moment on, a lot of research and courses and workshops start to be available for people. And that was my year 2 and my year 3 of concussions, 2015 and 16. And so I educated myself. I followed them, even though it was, and we used this with the group of therapists, because I was in speech therapy and all that. So we used this as exercises, just like we would do intervals on the bike, on the trainer. So my techniques, I was doing it with, the content was post-concussion syndrome, recovery and management and all that. So I need to understand how to be reliable to myself. And so 2 things here is, first, whatever you're dealing with, if you're able to reach out and to have your team of experts around you, and it's not one person that's going to know everything. It was the expert around you, and have them talk to each other. And own your file, own your thing. So as an athlete, own what you're doing, understand your nutrition, understand your injury recovery, understand your intervals training. And in my case, that's how I was as a coach with the athletes. I would link them with the expert. I worked with a junior here in Ottawa. I went to Junior Worlds. I was just her anchor. And then we were reaching out to the specialists in different fields. That's my trademark. That's how I go at things. That's how I parent. My kids have their team. So I had my team, and that's how I tackled, plus the education to understand. And up to today, I'm not an expert. I don't have the certification to help someone to recover from concussion or traumatic brain injury. But I can help a little bit. And I can help by just being an advocate and saying that it's not about what you cannot do, it's about what you can do. Today, you're adapting with the time frame, with the way we prepare. You adapted to me, And so I'm able to show up for you and for your audience. And I'm super, super grateful for that. Right. So 2 days ago, I was I was a different person, and I did my work so that I could look like, no one knows there's an invisible injury in there.
Then you'd be like,
yeah,
okay, I'm going to sleep for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But,
so that's my last message. It's integration, it's accessibility, it's adaptability in the lifestyle. If it goes with the workplace, with your equipment for work, in your schedule with your children, how much do you fit in when you have 10 minutes extra? Allow yourself to be early to an appointment, to a practice, to something, just breathe in, and I'd be happy to talk more about it.
You're the strongest woman I know. Like, honestly, I love talking to you. I wish we had more time to talk, not here, but like just hang out and talk. So next time you go to your cottage, you better stop by.
Yeah. And see, that's exactly the duality. I always feel yes. So there's still lots to do. And I'll tell you, I want back in cycling. I like it.
Well,
I
you
want
better
it. I like it.
I
don't know how,
girl, because I might have something for you.
Oh boy.
Oh, and okay, and everybody, just know that I've been bugging Julie to work with her for years. Before this, you're like, no. Maybe this is the time. Who knows? But you guys are just going to have to wait and find out, because we're going to bring it to an end. Julie, I mean, oh my God. But we're going to book her in for another, a continuation of this, because it's really worth talking about more concussion, like just that whole subject. So you have to rest up for that one. But we'll do it this fall, and just talk about, because athletes and concussion, it's a huge topic, but I think it's worth really listening to what Julie did to help herself through. It's been 8 years, right? 8 years. I've seen people get over concussions really quickly. You just only know from the outside. You don't know from the inside. My daughter suffers from a concussion symptoms still. And I don't even, it's hard as a parent to watch that happen. But I know that, Julie, it's worth listening to her and how she processes it, because did you just hear what she was saying? Interval training. And that's a really interesting way of thinking about it. So you guys are just going to have to wait. Thank you, everyone who caught this episode. Please share this with somebody you know who could really benefit from our discussion. Thank you, Julie, for being there and for coming on. I know I've been bugging you for a while. I'm like, yeah. And don't forget to subscribe and follow both of us on Instagram. Everything will be in the show notes where you can find us, and you have yourselves an amazing day. And you got to subscribe so you don't miss another amazing episode of whoever I bring out to interview, because you never know. So thanks so much, Julie. So appreciate you.
Sylvie, thank you so much. Bye-bye.